Hey, what's up, everybody? It's just Charles, and I welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And we have another interesting episode for you guys, so you definitely want to stick around for this one. So let me just go ahead and get into this episode here. Now, as y'all know, the play-in tournament begins this week, and us, for one, we're pretty much excited about it because we're planning to do a lot of lives this week, so it should be a lot of fun, but we'll definitely let you guys know tomorrow whether or not we're going to be doing lives to cover the playoffs like we did last year. So the playoffs are right around the corner, and the actual playoffs begin on Saturday because the play-in tournament is running from the 12th of April to the 15th of April, and then from there the playoffs begin on April 16th. So for the teams that made it into the playoffs, I guess you have to go into the playoffs without rest, and that's what happens when you're one of the playing teams. And one of the biggest questions that we've been getting on this channel is this: do you think that the media as a whole will spend any time this year covering the Lakers, even though the NBA playoffs are going to be underway? Right, is one of the questions. We even heard recently Kendrick Perkins on ESPN basically said he's done talking about the Lakers. You heard the story of Mike Wilbon basically arguing with executives, and this is via Stephen A. Smith, basically saying why do we keep putting the Lakers on TV when they've been bad all season? So a lot of people have been wondering, will sports media still find a way to talk about the Lakers when the playoffs are underway? And I think the answer is quite simple: yes. We will be talking about the Lakers because, they have had one of the most interesting and disappointing seasons in NBA history. And there's no way that you're not going to be able to talk about this team given all of the different storylines, right? It's like they're the biggest story in town because, as I said before, this has been a disastrous season. And now we got to the point now that the season is over officially. Now we've gotten to the point with the Lakers where we're now trying to figure out what happens next. Right, we kind of witnessed the accident and now it's happened, and we're like, okay, so what's the next thing? And I think that's where we are right now with the Lakers. And it seems as if one person that may be the first person heading out the door, maybe the head coach in Frank Vogel, via a tweet that Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN put out just yesterday. So I want to quickly read the tweet here. Let me get into the tweet. Let me read it here. Adrian Wojnarowski said, Frank Vogel has coached his final game for the Lakers, a decision that's expected to be shared with him as soon as Monday, sources tell ESPN. Lakers search expected to be lengthy and expansive with no clear initial front runner. So as things stand, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Lakers are going to be parting ways with head coach Frank Vogel. And one of the people that has been quite vocal about his position on the Lakers and how he feels as if, the media has tried to scapegoat Frank Vogel and Russell Westbrook. That person has been Charles Barkley. And just yesterday, he expressed his thoughts on the possibility of Frank Vogel being fired. So for those of you who missed some of the comments that Charles Barkley made yesterday on NBA on TNT, we're going to play a little bit of it and then come back here and react.
Frank Vogel has coached his final game for the Lakers. A decision is expected to be shared with him as soon as Monday.
No, not Monday.
Tell ESPN. Lakers search expected to be lengthy and expansive with no clear initial front runner.
Well, Frank Vogel is getting screwed.
He sure is.
Because whoever put these old ass geezers together, they deserve the lion's share. They've scapegoated Frank, obviously, and Russ all year. But this team, I told you from day one, I said, the only chance this team got a chance to be competitive is Anthony Davis. And clearly he's not doing what he's supposed to do. But to blame Frank and Russ for putting this old-ass team together, I told you, ain't enough Icy Hot, Ben Gay, Azorbain Jr., WD-40. My grandmother used to put WD-40 on her knees and ankles to loosen them up. They should try that for them old-ass geezers.
Only team in the league with an average age over 30.
Hey, and they're not over 30. They're not 31 either. They're 36, 37. Over 30, way over 30.
Now, here are my thoughts on this. We all know, especially in the NBA, whenever things go wrong on a basketball team, usually the person that gets fired or the person that they get rid of first is usually the head coach. It's just the way that it happens. I think it's easier to fire a coach than it is to go out there and try to trade a player away, right? So usually when teams have disappointing seasons, usually the head coach is the first one to go. So there's no real surprise here. This is not the first time that something like this is happening. However, here's my issue. My issue is, why is Frank Vogel, of all coaches, being fired? I want to quickly draw a quick parallel between Frank Vogel and head coach Doc Rivers. Here's the difference. When the Clippers fired Doc Rivers after they blew that 3-1 lead in the NBA playoffs in the second round against the Denver Nuggets, it was totally warranted. And I'll tell you why. Because some people say, well, they're both championship coaches, so why would you? Here's the reason why. Up until that point, Doc Rivers had never won a championship with the Los Angeles Clippers, right? He had done it in Boston, but he hadn't done that with the Clippers. I feel that if Doc Rivers at one point or another during his 6 or 7 year tenure with the Clippers had won an NBA championship with that team, even if they blow that 3-1 lead, I don't see him getting fired, because the owner and management can say, well, this is an incredible disappointment, but at least we know that this guy can get the job done for this particular team, this particular, core unit of stars, right? But in the case of Frank Vogel, he actually just less than 2 years ago was the head coach of a Lakers team that went to the NBA Finals. Although it was a bubblicious championship, they still won the NBA championship with this same core unit of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So when people are asking the question of whether or not they should blame the coach, the question is this: is he a proven coach with this particular core group of players? And the answer is yes, because just 2 seasons ago, they won the NBA championship. So that's the first thing when we want to talk about, when you talk about firing him. The second thing is this: how is firing Frank Vogel going to solve the number one issue this team had all season long, which was their defense? Frank Vogel is known as a defensive-minded coach. When the Lakers won the championship, they were the number 1 rated defensive team in the NBA. So it's not like as if Frank Vogel doesn't know how to get guys to play defense. The evidence is there. He did that just 2 years ago. This season, for whatever reason, this Lakers roster seemed incapable or totally uninterested in playing defense at all. They did not play defense from beginning to end of the season. And I think the last 2 wins that the team got, the second to last win that they got, they asked them, how did they win? And they said, because they finally decided to play defense. We all knew, or at least some of us that were at least astute enough to realize the core issue of this team. We all knew that issue was the defense. The Lakers were a horrendous defensive team, and they refused to play any defense whatsoever. That's the number one reason that they lost. So my question is, okay, you fire Frank Vogel, you go out there, you get another coach, whoever that coach is going to be, right? Whoever the coach is going to be. How is that coach going to be able to help these guys to play defense when they simply don't want to play defense? One of the things that I've heard is that they said, well, listen, these guys are not motivated. You need to get somebody to get through it. You have 5 Hall of Fame players on your roster. What other motivation do you need? These guys are supposed to be self-starters, in my personal opinion. I don't see why you have to resurrect these guys from the dead every year. These are some of the best players in NBA history in terms of their status as Hall of Famers. So why would you need a coach to get you guys motivated? I can understand if you had a coach that didn't understand the right schemes and all of these things to put into play. That's one thing. But from a motivational standpoint, you need a coach to motivate you. At this point in your career, you're a 10, 15-year veteran in the NBA, and you're still looking for a coach to get you going. That's to me. Listen, that doesn't make any sense. And I think firing the coach is like putting a Band-Aid on a cutlass wound. For those of you guys who know what a cutlass is, you know what it is, right? It's like somebody gashes your leg with a cutlass and then you go put a Band-Aid on it and expect it all of a sudden to solve the problem. It's not going to do a bloody thing, in my personal opinion. So here's what I actually think. I think the people that are most to blame are these people. I think number one is, not number one, let me just say in this order. You have LeBron James is to blame because he played a part in roster construction, whatever you guys think he did. Of course, you have Rob Pelinka. And you have the players on the team. Now, why am I blaming LeBron? I blame LeBron because he made some silly roster construction suggestions, right? That's the first thing. He suggested for them to get Russell Westbrook and all that. So LeBron bears some responsibility. And also given the fact that he is a leader of the team, right? There's no way you're going to have such an abysmal, disappointing season like this and not point any fingers at the leader. Like, where does that even work, right? What other parts in life does that work where you have an organization that grossly underperforms and you don't look at the leader, you don't look at the CEO? Usually when corporations underperform, the person that they usually get rid of is the CEO. But in this particular case, we don't want to look at the CEO. Now, some people say Rob Pelinka is the CEO. No, he's not. LeBron James is the number one guy on that team. We all know this. So I'm going to blame LeBron James for making some silly roster construction suggestions. I'm going to blame Rob Pelinka for listening to LeBron, right? Because ultimately, he's the one that pulled the trigger. Now, it's funny that some people are saying, well, ultimately he listened to him. And it's like, well, okay, well, we got it. Because if you didn't listen to him, they would be like, well, you're not going to listen to one of the all-time greatest. Either way, people are going to find a way to, skirt the issue and try to blame somebody. There's always an answer. There's always I've understood this. There's always an excuse. There's always something that you can say. And finally, the third group are the players. Because ultimately, these guys went out there and played like garbage. They did. There's no two ways about it. And that includes Russell Westbrook, who did not play well this season whatsoever. But it wasn't just him. Because Russell Westbrook cannot guard all five positions on the court. The Lakers as a team decided that they were not going to play defense, and that is the number one reason that they lose. Period. End of story. Period. End of story. So for me, listen, I think Charles Barkley is absolutely right, and we all saw this coming. We knew that eventually Frank Vogel was going to be fired. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to remove the coach. You remove him out of the equation. And what that does is it takes away an excuse. Because now, if the team doesn't perform well next year, well, you can't blame the coach because the coach is gone. So it actually puts more pressure on the players and management to get this thing right for next season. So if they want to fire the coach, they can, by all means, they can do whatever the hell they want. They're going to do whatever they want. But now it says, okay, now that we gotten rid of the coach, what next? And I think that's what we're all waiting to see. So the question is to you guys is twofold. Number one, do you agree with Charles Barkley? Do you think it's unfair that Frank Vogel has basically been scapegoated? And now, if they do end up firing the coach, what do you think happens next? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we'll definitely catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.